It happened on a gray Tuesday morning. It's one of those mornings where the rain never quite commits but lingers like a fog of fatigue over the city. Office workers in Midtown shuffled into the towering chrome building on Fifth Avenue, coffee cups in hand, umbrellas dripping. Among them was a man no one noticed. Not really. His name was Carl Thompson. The janitor Carl was 62, slow in steps, but quick in smiles. He was the kind of man who would quietly change a light bulb above your desk without you even knowing it. Had gone out. He worked the early shift at Holcomb & Bryce, a mid-sized marketing firm run by sleek suits and sharper tongues. He'd been with them for 11 years and never asked for a raise. Always wore the same olive work jacket, always humming some forgotten tune from the 70s. Carl wasn't just a janitor. He was a quiet observer of the office's rhythms. He knew who cried in the stairwell after layoffs, who stayed late just to avoid going home, who brought in extra sandwiches to accidentally leave in the fridge for the interns. But no one knew Carl, at least not until that morning, as fate would have it. That same Tuesday marked the start of Holcomb & Bryce's quarterly pitch, week a stressful string of days where the executives ran around in tailored suits, yelling about branding strategies and analytics. At the helm was Trevor Holcomb, the CEO. Early 40s, power tie, always on point, voice like a knife wrapped in velvet. Trevor wasn't a monster, but he played one well. Ambition, not empathy, coursed through his veins. Believed pressure made diamonds, and that failure was contagious. So when he walked into the lobby that morning and saw a small puddle of milk near the elevator, a tiny, glistening splash left from someone's spilled breakfast, he didn't step over it like any sane person. He snapped, "Are you kidding me?" Trevor barked. He glanced around. And there was Carl, calmly walking over with a mop, ready to clean it up. Carl. "Is this what we pay you for?" Carl didn't flinch. He merely dipped the mop, looked up and offered a half smile. "Morning, sir, I got it." But Trevor wasn't interested in a mop or a smile. With a half-empty carton of milk he'd taken from the staff, fridge probably belonging to someone else, he held it up theatrically, like a prop in a courtroom. And before anyone could stop him, he appended it over Carl's head. Cold. Milk streamed down Carl's face, soaking into his jacket. The lobby fell silent. A dozen employees watched in stunned disbelief. Someone gasped. Another started filming, unsure why. But Carl just stood there, still.com. He blinked, milk dripping from his eyelashes. Said softly, "Guess I missed a spot." It wasn't sarcasm. It wasn't anger. Just grace. Trevor scoffed, adjusted his cufflinks, and strutted into the elevator like nothing happened as the doors closed behind him. What happened next wasn't planned, but it would be remembered. Within minutes, the video hit the internal messaging channels. Within an hour, someone posted it online. By lunchtime, the video had gone viral. CEO pours milk on elderly janitor. Read the headline on dozens of news sites. Comments flooded in, some shocked, some outraged, all stunned by Carl's reaction. But that wasn't the twist. The twist came from where it was least expected. Among the views and shares and outrage was a woman named Dana Brooks, a former employee of Holcomb & Bryce, fired 2 years ago after taking time off to care for her sick father. Dana had worked closely with Carl during her time there. He'd once fixed her broken chair and left a handwritten note wishing her dad a speedy recovery. Note she'd kept. Dana was now a writer for a national publication. She watched the video again and again. Then she wrote a piece called "The Janitor with the Gentle Heart." The article wasn't about milk. It wasn't even about the boss. It was about Carl, the man who cleaned up messes he didn't make. The man who chose kindness when insulted, patience when humiliated. That article spread faster than the video. Local news picked it up, then national. Within 24 hours, Carl was on morning shows, seated awkwardly between hosts in sparkly dresses, talking about forgiveness and dignity. He wasn't trying to go viral, just didn't see the point in fighting hate with more hate. Everyone's got their storms, Carl told one interviewer. Sometimes people rain on you. You can either stay soaked or go find the sun. His words, simple, honest, unscripted, touched millions. At Holcomb & Bryce, the backlash came like an avalanche. Clients dropped. Shareholders demanded answers. Trevor tried to apologize, of course, issued a statement, hired a PR team, claimed he was under immense stress. But it was too late. By Friday, the board voted unanimously to remove him as CEO. Carl. He was offered a promotion he didn't ask for, six-figure PR position at a rival firm. He declined. Instead, he asked the company to fund scholarships for custodial workers' kids. They clean up after others, Carl said.
Maybe.
It's time someone helped clean a path for them. And so, the janitor who once hummed tunes in Forgotten, Corners became a quiet hero in plain clothes, not because he shouted, not because he fought, but because he stood in a storm, soaked in milk and grace, and smiled anyway. Carl Thompson never asked to be famous, didn't know how to handle the attention, the flashing cameras, or the news anchors asking for his thoughts on forgiveness in modern society. To him, it had never been a strategy. It's been a moment of choice to respond with grace. Because that's what his mother had taught him. But life has a way of surprising even the quietest souls. After the viral video and Trevor's very public firing, the world's attention didn't move on as quickly as Carl had expected. For weeks, letters poured in, not just from Americans, but from people in Canada, the UK, and beyond. Some wrote to say thank you. Others shared stories of janitors in their schools, hospitals, and buildings, people who had quietly shaped their lives, never seeking credit. 1. A letter came from a teenager in Manchester, England, who had nearly dropped out of school until a custodian gave him an old pair of shoes and told him, "Don't let the world make you smaller than you are." Another from a nurse in Nova Scotia who said Carl's story reminded her of her grandfather. A man who'd mopped floors at a university so she could one day study there. Carl read every single one. At night, after his shift ended, he was still mopping, still showing up every morning at 5 a.m. He'd sit in his small apartment with a cup of tea and a stack of envelopes, tears silently falling into the steam. But it wasn't until a third-grade class from a public school in Detroit sent him a video that something truly changed. The children, mostly from low-income families, stood together in a classroom with colorful, hand-drawn signs that said things like, "Kindness is power," and "Be like Carl." One little girl named Jada looked straight into the camera and said, "I want to be a janitor like Mr. Carl because he's brave and nice." And he didn't yell, even when the boss was mean. Carl watched it 3 times in a row. The next day, he made a decision. The following month, a quiet but powerful initiative was born. Mop to the Top, a scholarship fund and mentoring program for young people in overlooked jobs or from underserved backgrounds. It focused on kindness, resilience, and dignity in labor values Carl had lived, not preached. He partnered with teachers, social workers, and volunteers, and while he never gave speeches, his presence was the anchor. At every school visit, every small-town event, Carl would walk in wearing his olive jacket, hand out notebooks with handwritten encouragements, and mop the stage before each talk just to remind people that no work was beneath anyone. It wasn't long before others joined the cause. CEOs who saw the video and felt ashamed of their own leadership, parents who wanted their kids to grow up understanding humility, even celebrities who were moved by Carl's quiet resolve. But perhaps the most unexpected person to reach out was Trevor Holcomb himself. Months had passed since his firing. Publicly disgraced, he'd moved to a quiet town outside Seattle. Didn't ask for sympathy. He didn't deserve it, and he knew that now. But in a letter addressed to Carl, he wrote, "Greater than you didn't just end my career. You exposed the person I had become and gave me a mirror I needed. I'm sorry for what I did. I was cruel not because of milk or stress or power, but because I forgot people matter more than numbers. Thank you for reminding the world of what's real. You may not believe it, but I'm learning now." Carl didn't reply. Not at first. Instead, he sent a signed copy of a photo the school kids in Detroit had drawn of him, a stick figure with a mop and a big heart. Underneath, he'd scribbled, "Greater than even stains can be cleaned. Takes the right kind of effort." The emotional climax came during the Global Kindness Summit in Toronto that year. It wasn't a red carpet event, more like a gathering of community leaders, teachers, and everyday heroes from across North America. Carl had been invited as a guest of honor, but as usual, he declined the spotlight until something unexpected happened. As Carl stood near the back of the hall, watching a speaker on stage, a woman approached him in tears. She was in her late 30s with a soft British accent. "You probably don't remember me," she said, "but in 2009, I worked at Holcomb and Bryce. I was new to the country. I was terrified every day. One morning, I was crying in the hallway after I'd messed up a report. You sat beside me. You didn't say much. Just handed me a warm muffin and said, 'It's going to be all right. You're more than a bad day.' I kept that muffin wrapper. It had your name on it, Carl. I've become a teacher now. I tell my students that story every year." Carl was silent. His eyes, always calm, shimmered, and for the first time ever, he stepped onto a stage. No script. No teleprompter. He cleared his throat. The room went silent. "I'm not special," he began. "I just don't believe in making people feel small. We all got dirt on our shoes. Some of us carry mops. Some carry briefcases. But at the end of the day, we all just want to matter." He paused. "And maybe, if we spent less time looking down and more time looking around, we'd see what really needs cleaning up in this world." The crowd stood. Every last person. It wasn't the words that moved them, it was the weight of their honesty. Today, Carl no longer cleans office floors, but he still rises at 5 a.m., still drinks tea from the same chipped mug, still volunteers at his local shelter every Thursday. And every now and then, a young adult will stop him on the street, shake his hand and say, "You don't know me, but you changed my life." And he'll smile, tilt his head, and reply, "Well, ain't that something? 'Cause kindness doesn't need a spotlight. It doesn't need fame. It just needs someone willing to stand still while the world rushes past. Choose grace."